Hello everyone, my name is Rick van Bruggen from Neo4j, and I'd like to take a couple of minutes here to illustrate something really powerful that we've been experimenting with at Neo4j, which is actually something that may affect all of us in the next couple of weeks and months, which is contact tracing. Right. What is this? It's all over the news, right? You can see it on Google or wherever you get your news. But it's basically the idea that as we wind down our lockdowns, right, our COVID-19 lockdowns in the different countries all across the world, we'll actually need some kind of a way to flatten the curve and to make sure that the virus doesn't spiral out of control. And one of the ways that we could do that is by tracing the contacts that people have and how they move through society and potentially affect other people. Right, in order to do that, we've created a synthetic data set, right? A synthetic data set that you can see over here. It's in a Google sheet, right? And it's got basically a couple of entities, right? The first one is persons, right? Hypothetical people, right? 500 of them that have a health status, right? That also have confirmation time, right? So this is when the health status was established. And they also have an address with a latitude and longitude, a coordinate, basically. Then we have places, right? Places that these people might visit, right? So there's lots of different types of places here. There's 101 of them, right? There's grocery shops, there's malls, there's schools, there's restaurants, and all of these places also have lat and long coordinates. And then the interesting part. The interesting part are the visits, of course. What visits does a particular person, right, take into a particular place? And when is that person, start time and end time, actually in that place, right? So allows us to understand, how people move from place to place, who they might meet, right? And we'd like to import this data set into Neo4j first of all. Right? How will we do that? Well, first of all, we need a Neo4j database. I've got one running here. It's version 3.5.17, not the latest 4.0 version. There's good reasons for that. There's a little bit of a compatibility hiatus right now where the Graph Data Science library that I like to use and Bloom are not yet supported on 4.0. This is happening in the next few weeks, but for now, I'm actually better off using 3.5.17 for the purposes of this demo. Right, I've actually created a little browser guide for this little experiment. Right, it's based on my blog posts. Right, but you can just actually go through this and follow along as you import the data set. Right, a Google Sheet actually has a CSV export mode, right, that you can really easily access, right? So in order for me to import a Google Sheet, all I need to do is point Neo4j to this URL, right? You can see it over here, right? And say, that's where the CSV export of my Google Sheet is. So why don't you fetch that and then create a node for every row that you find in that CSV file, right? That's what I'm doing here. For the persons in the Google Sheet, I'm creating nodes, right? Person nodes with an ID, with a name, with a health status, all of the columns that I saw earlier on, right? A little bit special are the points, right? The location, right? Because that's where I will actually combine two columns, right? The address lat column and the address long column into one spatial data type called a point, right? I'm going to run this, right? And a few seconds later, I will have my 501 nodes created. I'm going to do the same for my places, right? I've got the CSV export of the places, and for each one of those places, I create a place node with an ID, a name, a place, a location, right? So I'm importing that one as well, 101 of them, right? And then next up, I want to link them together, right? In order to do that, I need a little bit of infrastructure. That's essentially the indexes that allow me to look up persons and places very efficiently. And then I can just run this query over here, which is a query that connects the persons to the places, right? So in order to do that, I look up a person based on the ID, and then I create the visit nodes, right? And the performance visit relationship and the located at relationship. And the alternative view of this is basically the visits relationship. Person visits place. There's good reasons for having both, right? And I'll be putting the duration of the visit on both the nodes and the relationship, right? So that means the difference between the start time and the end time, right? I'll add those as well. There's a little bit more of those, so it takes a couple of seconds longer, but not much. You know, I've just added 5,000 nodes and labels, 40,000 properties, 15,000 relationships in a couple of seconds, right? Last thing here is basically I'll be adding the region, right? And now when I've done that, I've actually imported all of the data, right? I can just explore it, right? I've got a continent here, Europe, right? Europe has a country called Belgium. It has a region called Antwerp. And in Antwerp, I have all of these places, right? If I just grab one of these places, I will see that a number of people have visited these places. Right, so this doesn't give you a lot of information yet. In order to do that, we'll need to start querying the data set, which is exactly what we'll do in a few minutes when I start the next video. Hopefully this was already useful. You've learned how to import the data set into Neo4j, and we'll take it from there in the next session.